Hey, welcome back. We are learning Tractate Shabbos, Daf Yomi for 38. We are ahead one page, 38a1. It's chapter 3. The name of the chapter is Kira, which is this rectangular oven. Shochach Kedera. So the top of page 38. Shochach Kedera Gabi Kira Vishlo b'Shabbos Now. If one forgot a pot of uncooked food on an unbanked kira, the ashes are not, he did not cover the charcoals with the ashes before the Shabbos, and it cooked on the Shabbos. What is the law? Ishtik v'lamalumid. So Bechia Barabba was initially silent and did not reply at all. The next day he went out and lectured to them. What do you do in such a case of a food that was cooked on Shabbos on an unbanked coals? If one cooked on the Shabbos inadvertently, he may eat it, and if he cooked intentionally, he may not eat it. There is no such distinction regarding food left on an unbanked kira before the Shabbos, whether it was banked or unbanked. It is subject to the same rule whether it was left there inadvertently or intentionally. So inadvertently you would be allowed to eat it. Intentionally, you would not be allowed to eat that food that was cooked on Shabbos. My veloshna, what is the meaning of the statement there is no such distinction regarding food left on an unbanked kira before the Shabbos? Does it mean that the food is permitted whether it was left there inadvertently or intentionally, or that it is forbidden in both instances? What does it mean? No. So Rabbi Menashe say that Rabbi Chia bar Abba meant to rule permissibly regarding both instances, and that the reason this case is stated more, the reason this case is treated more leniently than that of cooking on the Shabbos is as follows: Mevashul the Kovid Maisa. It is only regarding one who cooks and who thus does a forbidden act on the Shabbos that we say that. If he cooked intentionally, he may not eat it. He may not eat the food. But in regard to this one, who merely left food on an unbanked kira before the Shabbos, and who did not do a forbidden act on the Shabbos, he didn't do anything. So the rule is that even if he left it on the flame intentionally, he may eat it. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said that Rabbi Chia bar Abba meant to rule prohibitively regarding both instances of food left on an unbanked kira before the Shabbos, and the reason this case is treated more stringently than that of cooking on the Shabbos is as follows: It is only regarding one who cooks on the Shabbos in violation of biblical law, and who will not come to engage in deceit and cook intentionally while claiming that he did so inadvertently, that we rule that if he cooked inadvertently, he may eat the food. But concerning this one who left food in an unbanked kira, meaning live coals, before the Shabbos in violation of rabbinical law, and who may come to engage in deceit and leave it there intentionally while claiming that he did so inadvertently, the rule is that even if he left it on the flame inadvertently, he may not eat it. The Gemara challenges the interpretation of Rabbi Menashe. If one forgot a pot of unbanked food on an unbanked kira before the Shabbos, and he cooked, and it cooked on the Shabbos, if it happened inadvertently, he may eat it. But if he left it there intentionally, he may not eat it. So inadvertently he may eat it. B'mezid, intentionally he may not eat it. What are we dealing with? Regarding hot water that was not fully heated, or cooked food that was not fully cooked. If the water were heated and the food was completely cooked, whether it was inadvertently or intentionally, you should eat. These are the words of Rabbi Menashe. Rabbi Yehuda says, hot water that was fully heated at the onset of the Shabbos, mutorin, and was left on an unbanked kira, is permitted for consumption. Why? Because hot water deteriorates as it condenses. Also, cooked food that was fully cooked at the onset of the Shabbos and was left on an unbanked kira is often forbidden for consumption because it condenses, but it enhances the food. It improves its as it condenses. And the rule is that any food that improves as it condenses, such as cabbage, beans, or minced meat, also is forbidden if it was left to condense on an unbanked kira. But any food that deteriorates as it condenses is permitted even if it was left on an unbanked kira. In any event, the Bible teaches that a cooked food that was not fully cooked may be eaten if it was left on a kira inadvertently, but not if it was left there intentionally. Yet Rabbi Menashe ruled that no such a distinction is to be made. All is well according to the interpretation of Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rabbi Menashe meant to prohibit consumption of food in both instances. There is no difficulty, for we can explain it. Here in the Vaisa, which distinguishes between food left on an unbanked kira inadvertently and food left there intentionally, we are dealing with the period prior to the decree, whereas here in Rabbi Chia bar Abba's ruling that food is prohibited in both instances, we are dealing with the period after the decree. Because people might say, yeah, we did it unintentionally, but really they did it intentionally. But according to Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, who say that Rabbi Chia meant to rule permissibly regarding both instances of food left on an unbanked kira, his ruling is difficult, no matter when he stated it. If it is stated prior to the decree, his ruling regarding food left on unbanked kira intentionally is difficult, since he permits consumption of the food and the Baita forbids it. And if he stated after the decree, even his ruling regarding food left on the unbanked kira inadvertently is difficult, since he permits its consumption after the decree is certainly forbidden. So Kasha, the Gemara concludes that this is indeed a difficulty. The Gemara explains the circumstances that led to the enactment of the previously mentioned decree. My Gezeir also, what is the decree? Or what was the basis for this decree? At first they used to say, one who cooks on the Shabbos inadvertently may eat the food, and one who cooks intentionally may not eat the food. And the same rule applies to one who forgets food on an unbanked kira before the Shabbos. A lot of people started leaving uncooked food on the Shabbos, before Shabbos, so it cooks on Shabbos, and they used to say, Shechechim anu, we forgot. The rabbis revised the law and penalized even one who forgot food on an unbanked kira and forbade him to consume it. That was the penalty, that he should not eat this food. Kash Rabbi Meir's ruling are contradictory. Kash Rabbi Uda and Rabbi Uda's ruling are contradictory. Rabbi Meir permits the consumption of both food and hot water that was fully cooked at the onset of the Shabbos and was left on an unbanked kira, whereas earlier he ruled only hot water may be left on an unbanked kira, but not cooked food. Furthermore, in this Baisa, Rabbi Yehuda ruled that even fully cooked food that is left on a kira is forbidden for consumption if it improves as it condenses. Whereas earlier he ruled that it is permitted to leave fully cooked food on a kira. So the Gemara answers, resolves the difficulties of Amir's ruling are not contradictory. This ruling in the earlier Baisa refers to the procedure that is not followed initially by the Avid, whereas this ruling in our Baisa refers to the law after the fact. So, Alechatchila the Avid. This ruling in the earlier Baisa refers to the procedure that is followed initially, how you're supposed to do it, the Chatchila, to begin with. Whereas this ruling in our Baisa refers to the law after the fact. Rabbi Meir holds that initially one should not leave cooked food on an unbanked kira. However, if one did leave it there, Rabbi Meir permits its consumption after the fact. The Rabbi Yehuda's ruling are also not contradictory. Here in the earlier Baita, Rabbi Yehuda is dealing with a kira, with an oven that was shoveled or banked, that you clear the coals or cover them. Whereas here in our Baisa we are dealing with a kira that was not shoveled or banked. When the kira was shoveled or banked, Rabbi Yehuda permits leaving fully cooked food on it, even if it improves. It improves as it condenses, as the food contracts and condenses, it improves the food. He allows you to do it. But when, because the coals, the wood, the coals in the kira were covered or banked, or shoveled. But when the kira was not shoveled or banked, it forbids this, and even forbids consumption of the food after the fact if it improves as it condenses. So Ibalu, Orba V'Shur Mai, if a person violated the law and left a pot on an unbanked kira, what is the law? Mikansur Rabbanon, did the rabbis penalize them and forbid consumption of food or not? Tashma Dom Shmuel Banosam Bichanina Ksholach Aves Tzipori Motza Chamish Nishtahu Al Gabe Kira. When Rabbi Yossi went to Tzipori, he discovered hot water that had been left on an unbanked kira. V'lo Yosal, he did not forbid it to them. Beitzim Mitzok Nishtar Al Gabe Kira v'Osal Lo En Bet. He also discovered shriveled eggs that had been left on an unbanked kira, and he did prohibit that to them. Hot water deteriorates as it condenses, for it evaporates, whereas shriveled eggs improve in flavor as they condense and shrivel even further. Therefore, Rabbi Yossi did not prohibit the hot water, but did prohibit the shriveled eggs. Figure that the eggs are getting better as they're being cooked.
I don't know about that, but okay.
Like some people put eggs in the cholent, so these eggs are being cooked for yeah. Sfadim put the eggs in the cholent.
Right.
So my love loisu Shabbos. Does this not mean that he issued the prohibition for that very Shabbos? He prohibited the consumption of the shriveled eggs. Accordingly, we learn from here that food left on the unbanked kira is prohibited for consumption. It says in 18, the proof is based on the presumption that the eggs did not really condense on the Shabbos since they were already shriveled beforehand.
Okay, that's what, like Sean. If you put the eggs, put the cholent on an hour even or so before Shabbos, those eggs are already cooked.
Right. The Gemara says, Lo Shabbos Habo. It means that Rabbi Yossi prohibited them to repeat this practice on the following Shabbos. He did not, however, prohibit consumption of the eggs that he discovered on the unbanked kira. He just said, don't do it again. Don't do it in the next Shabbos.
Right.
The Gemara disagrees slightly to analyze the episode involving Rabbi Yossi. This implies that shriveled eggs are a food that improve as they condense and shrivel even further. Is this indeed so? Question mark.
Right.
The Amar Rabbi Chanina said yes. Rabbi and I once lodged in the same place, and they served us eggs that had shriveled until they were small as sorb apples. And we ate many of them. I guess they were very good. It says in 20, this incident occurred on a weekday. Since Rav Chama stated that he and Rabbi ate many of the tiny eggs, it is obvious that they were quite tasty. This demonstrates that the shriveled eggs continues to improve as they continue to condense.
Okay.
There's something you can try at home and see if it actually gets better or not. Yeah. I don't know if they had a special process.
Basically, hard boiled eggs. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. The question is, what happens if it continues to boil it? Continue to boil it more than it has to. So basically, say we may even return it. Amar of Sheshes, meaning you may return. You took something off the kira on Shabbos, or you're allowed to put it back. According to Beisila, we previously said there are many different opinions how they interpreted the opinion of Beisila, how they interpreted the opinion of Ben Shammai. But anyway, in the Mishnah it says that you're allowed to bring it back. Chazara. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we learned that you're allowed to bring it back if the kira was shoveled or banked. According to Hananya, it also permitted on a shoveled banked kira. Okay, so let's see. It says the Beisil said we may even return it. According to the opinion who said that one may return food to kira, Beisil, afilu b'Shabbos. One may do so even on the Shabbos day, not just Friday night. So the Gemara says, "Ve'af Rabbi Yishai sovar af machzirin afilu b'Shabbos." And Rabbi Yishai also hold that Beisila ruling that one may even return food to a shoveled or banked kira applies even on the Shabbos day. We were once standing before Rabbi Chia the Great, and we brought up a kettle of hot water for him. So they brought up a kettle of hot water for him from the lower floor of the house to the upper floor. Diluted a cup of wine for him with hot water, and then returned the kettle to its place on the kira on the lower floor. It didn't say anything. It did not tell us anything in objection to what we had done. Rabbi Yishai's statement to demonstrate that it is permissible to return food to the kira even on the Shabbos day.
It's like you take off the cholent.
The opinion of Beisil.
Okay, like the cholent pot. Let's say you wanted to have it Friday night, you want to have it on Shabbos day. So I take it off, I hold it. She takes it out, takes whatever we want out, and then I put it back into on the thing. So we had it in mind. We did it with the Shino.
Right.
So maybe this is.
Yeah, but over here we're dealing with kira. Kira is although it's similar to, we read that it's similar to what we have today in terms of halachically, in terms of heat, producing heat and the like. But from here we see that he's allowed to bring it back. So Omar Rabbi Zerika Amar Rabbi Tadai, Zerika said in the name of Rabbi Abu, said in the name of Rabbi Tadai, Lo Shon Lo Shodem Biyodi. They taught that one may return food to a shoveled or banked kira only concerning a case where the pot is still in his hand. One never let go of it from the time he removed it from the kira. Also, but if he placed it on the ground, it is forbidden to lift it and return it to the kira. Rabbi Tadai spoke for himself alone. The halacha does not follow. Even if one placed the pot on the ground, it is permissible to return it to the kira. One of them said that if the pot is still in his hand, it is permissible to return it to the kira. But if you placed it on the ground, it is forbidden to return it to the kira. The other one said that even if you placed it on the ground, also it is also permissible to return it to the kira. So it's a machlekes between Rav Dimi and Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. Amar Chizkiya Mishmei Abaye Ad Omar Toidon Be'odom Muto. Chizkiya said the name of Abaye that which you stated. If the pot is still in his hand, it is permissible to return it to the kira. Lo yamor shedaitu leachzir, and daitu leachzir also only where he intended to put it back. But if he did not intend to put it back, then it's forbidden. Which this is really relevant to this law, to the cholent pot, to anything that you left on the blech on Shabbos.
Right.
If you leave something on a hot plate, if you have in mind to bring it back, the hot plate should not have a way to increase heat and lower the heat.
Right.
So it's usually a hot plate you buy from a Jewish store would not have just one level of temperature.
Right.
So it's two things you have in mind, and you did not leave it on the floor. You kept on holding it. Also, this implies that if one placed the pot on the ground, even if you originally intended to return it to the kira, it is forbidden to return it. Also, that which you stated, that if you place the pot on the ground, it is forbidden to return it to the kira. Stated only concerning where he did not originally intend to return it there. But if he wanted to, if he had in mind to return it to the kira, it is permissible to return it even though he placed it on the ground. This implies that if the pot is still in his hand, even if he did not originally intend to return it, it is permissible to return it to the kira. The Gemara inquires about some cases that are intermediate between holding on to the pot and placing it on the ground. If he hung the pot on a peg, what is the law? If he put it down on a bed, what is the law? He didn't put it on the ground. Are these the equivalent of placing the pot on the ground or of holding it in one's hand? Another inquiry, if one transferred hot water that he had removed from the kira from one kettle to another, what is the law? May he return the water to the kira in the new kettle, or this is this tantamount to placing something new on the kira on the Shabbos? And the Gemara offers no resolution to the inquiries, but concludes teiku. Tishbi Ataras, Kushya Subayus, Elijah the prophet will come to answer these questions. Having discussed the laws pertaining to living and returning food on Akira, the Mishnah turns its attention to other types of heating utensils. Tanu Shisikoi Bikash Uvigvavo, concerning a tanu, oven that was heated with straw and stubble. So now this is really different. It's not the same as kira. Tanu is something that the heat is much more intensified, stronger heat. And now this stove was this oven was heated with straw and stubble. Loiten ben mitoicho ben mal gabo. One may not place food either inside it or on top of it. If A kupach, another type of an oven that was heated with straw and stubble. Now, kupach is similar to tanu in terms of heat. A kupach was heated with straw or with stubble is treated like a kira. If it was heated with mark or with wood, mark is M-A-R-C, or with wood, it is treated like a tanu. I guess mark and wood creating even more heat than straw and stubble. Tanu shisiku sovar mamish. Tanu that was heated, one may not place food either inside it or on top of it. Rabbi Yosef was inclined to say that the term inside it refers literally to placing food inside the tanu, directly on the coals. Al gabo of mamish, and when we says on top of it, refers literally to placing food on top of the tanur, its rim, placing it on its rim. Arva lismoich sharper down, but placing food alongside the tanur is acceptable. Eisiv Abai. Abai is the question: kupach shesiku b'kashu gvor or kichiraim. A kupach that was heated with straw or with stubble is treated like a kira. But if it was heated with mark, M-A-R-C, or with wood, it is treated like a tanu. V'osu, which means that it is forbidden to place food on a kupach that was heated with mark or wood, or kichiro shori. This implies that if, however, the kupach that was heated with mark or wood would be treated like a kira, that was likewise fueled, it would be permissible to place food in it, or to place food on it. The Mishnah is dealing with a placement of food that is permissible in the case of kira, but not in the case of tanu or kupach. So b'maya skina. Now, with what case are we dealing? In what part of the kupach is the food being placed? If you will say that we are dealing with a case in which the food is being placed on top of the kupach, I will ask, and with what type of kupach are we dealing with? If you will say that it is one that was not shoveled or banked, I will ask, Elakiro ki eino gufu ktuma gav mishori. Concerning a kira that is not shoveled or banked, is it permissible to place food on top of it? Certainly not. Rather, is it not obvious that we are dealing with placing the food alongside the kupach, which would be permissible in the case of a kira? V'ketani aro kesanu v'asim. And is it concerning placing food alongside that the Mishnah states that kupach is treated like a tanu, and it is forbidden to place food there, next to it, alongside it. The Mishnah implies that it is forbidden to place food alongside a tanu, 38b3. Abai challenges Ribaf, Tamar Viada Baravo, Hocho, kupach go v'kotum v'tanu gedufu k'tuma skina. We are dealing with a kupach that was shoveled or banked, and with a tanu that was shoveled or banked. And we are dealing with placing food on top of it. And this is what the Mishnah means. Areu kesanu, if a kupach was heated with mark or with wood, it is treated like a tanu. The af al gav the go v'kotum al gabo also, even though it was shoveled or banked, it is forbidden to place food on top of it because of the intensity of its heat. Whereas if kupach had been treated like kira is a top in a rectangular oven that doesn't produce the same amount of heat, or produces less heat. Once it was shoveled or banked, it would be acceptable to place food on top of it. So how do I treat kupach? Do I treat kupach like tanu? It would be forbidden. Or do I treat kupach like kira, and it would be permissible in the case that it's shoveled or banked? The Gemara does support for Abaye's view that it is forbidden to place food alongside a tanu. Tanu Kavasei de Abaye, a Brisa was taught in accordance with the view of Abaye, Tanu Shesukua Bekashu V'Gvovo, concerning tanu that was heated with straw or stubble, which is something that produces less heat. Ein Simchin lo, we may not place food alongside it. Ve'ein tzorich loymar al gabo, it does, and it goes without saying that we may not place food on top of it. Ve'ein tzorich loymar, it does not, and it goes without saying that we may not place food inside. Ve'ein tzorich loymar begefes uve'etzim, and it goes without saying that we may not place food alongside or on top of or inside it. If it was heated with mark or with wood, they're obviously producing much more heat. Kupach sheisiku bekash v'gvava, concerning a kupach that was heated with straws or with stubble, it produces less heat. Somichin, we may place food alongside it. Ve'eno isnim al gabo, but we may not, and we may place food on top of it. Ve'eno isnim al gabo, it's written also in the parenthesis ve'ein, which means we not. Begefes ubeitzim, if it was heated with mark or with wood, ein somchilo, we may not even place food alongside it. And obviously, if you can't place food alongside it, you can't place food on top of it. The Rava, the son of Rava, said to Rav Ashi, what is the nature of kupach? What is the nature of this oven kupach? If it is like a kira, this rectangular oven, then even if it is heated with mark or with wood, one should also be allowed to place food on top of it, as long as it was shoveled or banked. And if it is treated, if kupach is treated like a tanu, then even if it is fueled with straw or stubble, one should also not be allowed to place food on it. Amarlei nofish havle midechira v'zuta havle midetanu. It says kupach is right in between. It has less, it is hotter than a kira, but at the same time, but not as hot as a tanu. So kupach is in between. Its status is therefore somewhere between that of kira and that of a tanu. When fueled with straw or with stubble, is treated like kira. But when fueled with mark or with wood, it is treated like a tanu. You get it?
Yeah.
So straw and stubble produces less heat, so kupach would be treated like a kira. And once it's heated with mark and wood, it would be treated like a tanu because now it has more heat.
So therefore, it's more strict with the...
Yeah, more strict of putting things on top of it or alongside it. The Gemara explained how kupach is distinguished from a kira in its physical appearance. What is kupach like and what is a kira like? A kupach is a square and has room for a placement of one pot. Square box, I guess maybe it was a metal box, it doesn't say what it was made out of, or maybe they made it from rocks, from stones, from mud, but it had one opening, square, and has room for a placement of one top. Kira mokum shvius shtei gderos, whereas kira is rectangular and has room for the placement of two pots. I guess the distribution of heat goes to two pots, and it's not as hot. Abai said, or perhaps it was Rabbi Menashe who said, Afanan nami tanina. We learned likewise in the following Mishnah. Now there's diagrams in the bottom where it shows what exactly it means by kira that had been tomei and was split lengthwise becomes toher. For since it can no longer accommodate a pot, it is not considered a utensil. So from here we see that it was made from clay. Otherwise, why do you have to break it? Earthenware you need to break if they contracted the impurity. So Amar Abai ve'Isem Rabbi Yirmiyah Afanan Lamitanin, we learned likewise. Kira that we just said before, it has two openings, it has room for the placement of two pots. Kira that had been tamei and was split lengthwise becomes Torah, for since it can no longer accommodate a pot, it is not considered a utensil. But if it was split widthwise, it is still tamei, since each half can still accommodate a single pot. Kupach ben lo ben lo concerning a kupach, whether it is split lengthwise or widthwise, since it's only one opening. Since either way it cannot accommodate a pot, it's no longer a pot. If it has two openings like here, depends how it was split. Split lengthways, it destroys both opening. But if it splits, if the kira was split widthwise, then it almost like shifted from a kira to be a kupach. It's still workable. I can still use it. But when it comes to kupach, regardless of the way it's splitted, ben lo ben lo it's always told because it's not a vessel anymore. It's not a utensil. We're going to 38b4, a new Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses cooking on the Shabbos by means of unconventional sources of heat. We may not place egg beside a hot kettle on the Shabbos in order that it be slightly roasted. Hot kettle, putting the egg next to it. We're not allowed to. Nor may one break it open and fry it upon the hot scarves that had baked in the sun.
That's weird.
Okay. Hot scarves, I guess they were heated.
Yeah.
And he now cracks the egg and places it on these scarves that are heated. Rabbi Yossi says it's okay. And nor may one bury it in the sand or in dust of the coals that have baked in the sun in order that it be roasted. There was an incident in which the people of Tiberias went ahead and ran a pipe of cold water into a canal of hot spring water before the Shabbos, so that cold water would be heated automatically on the Shabbos. So they ran a pipe of cold water into a canal of hot spring water. So when the cold water came into contact with, they went through the pipe and came through the hot water, this hot canal, that now automatically they're being warmed up on Shabbos. They're being heated on Shabbos. If water flowed through the pipe on the Shabbos, it's like hot water that was heated manually on the Shabbos. And it is forbidden for both bathing and drinking. In B'Yom Tov, if water would flow through it on a festival, it would be like hot water that was heated manually on a festival, and would be forbidden for bathing, but permitted for drinking. This is similar to taking a shower on Shabbos, because the moment you use the hot water, new water are entering the water heater.
Taking a cold shower on Shabbos.
Yeah. That can lead to other issues, but saying the reason from here we see this concept of a pipe that had cold water running through hot water, and the waters were being heated on Shabbos.
So what if you turned it off? It was in a.
So someone would turn off his hot water, his water heater, that it not allowing it to have water coming in.
Yeah.
But then it creates also a possible issue that the water heater can explode if it doesn't have water in it. Water heater constantly
It
has
depends on the water heater. Like we have an electric water heater, so
electric water heater is a problem to begin with because it kicks the system.
No, but if you turn off the electric,
and then it's like taking a shower with cold water. Talking about taking a shower with hot water.
Oh.
Taking a shower with hot water. What is the issue with hot water? That it's going to be cooked on Shabbos.
Right.
New water will come in, but if you're stopping it, you're closing the pipe.
Right.
There's no entry. I don't know if there is a faucet that you can close, but let's say there was one, and you're closing new entry of water to the water heater.
Then I see, because you have the fire still going, and
then you're using hot water. You're emptying the tank, but you're not really.
You have a sakana there.
But there is an issue of.
But no, ours is you turning off the electric to the.
Right. So that's like taking a shower with cold water.
Right.
It doesn't do anything. I mean, you can just take a shower with cold water.
Right. We did that for
because your water heater heats it on the spot.
Right.
Does it heat right away, or you have to wait?
Pretty fast.
How fast?
I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, really.
5 minutes?
5, 10. I don't know. It's
so
pretty
one
hot.
second. So you have to you take a shower. You open the hot. You have to let it run for 10 minutes for
I don't know. Well, we don't. We usually we don't know.
What do you mean? When you take a shower, how does it work?
Let's say after Shabbos, right? Turn.
Regular day. You're walking to take a shower.
Then it's hot right away.
It's hot right away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it hits it as it goes immediately.
But my wife takes this bath and she uses up all the hot water, so I have to wait. If I was.
But why? How can you use all the hot
because
water?
She uses the whole tank up, and then it has to.
But so that's not. It's not electric. It's not electric because electric does not use a tank.
It is electric.
But it's not using a tank.
I don't know.
Why does it have a tank?
I know what you're talking about.
There's a system that hot water goes into it.
I know it's
and cold water goes in, hot water comes out, and it's immediate.
Right. I forgot the name of what you're talking about, but we don't.
Yeah, that's something else. Right. You're talking about you have a regular water heater.
I mean, it's
just a smaller one because it's Central Village, but it's a water heater.
Right. We're holding by the Gemara, right?
The Mishnah.
Oh, we're still in the Mishnah.
So if the water flew through the pipe on Shabbos, it's like hot water that was heated manually on the Shabbos, and it's forbidden for both bathing and drinking. In B'Yom Tov, if water would flow through it on a festival, it would be like hot water that was heated manually on a festival. And it would be forbidden for bathing, but permitted for drinking.
So we should leave it on for Yom Tov.
It says in number 30, it is permitted to cook food or liquids on Yom Tov for the purpose of consuming them that day. Thus, it would be certainly be permitted to drink water heated automatically in the Tiberian manner, that the cold went into hot. It is forbidden, however, to bathe in water that was heated on Yom Tov. The sages declared that this prohibition applied even if the water was heated automatically, like that of the Tiberian bath. The expression "there was an incident" generally signifies the introduction of a precedent in support of a previously stated ruling. The Gemara will discuss which of the previous ruling is supported by this precedent. The Gemara cites an inquiry concerning the Mishnah's first ruling. Ibalu, they inquired, Gilgal Mai, what if one did roast an egg slightly by the heat of a kettle? He put an egg next to the kettle on Shabbos and he cooked it slightly. Did he thereby transgress the biblical prohibition of cooking? Because it wasn't really direct cooking. Just placed it next to the pot. If one roasted it slightly, he is liable to a chatas offering, to a sin offering, for he has transgressed a biblical prohibition. A support is brought for Yosef's ruling. We learned likewise in the following Mishnah. Anything that was placed in hot water before the Shabbos may be cooked in hot water on the Shabbos. And anything that was not placed in hot water before the Shabbos may be rinsed with hot water on the Shabbos. Except for an old salted fish or a Spanish mackerel, which may not even be rinsed with hot water on the Shabbos. Because the rinsing with hot water completes their preparation. By stating that the rinsing completes their preparation, the Mishnah implies that once rinsed, they are considered cooked under biblical law. Shmamim, I'll learn from this that slightly roasting an egg against the side of a kettle is also considered an act of cooking under biblical law. Bruchim Tiyu should continue, God willing, tomorrow, and tonight we'll have, God willing, a class of Tanya and in Yaakov and Halacha. Bruchim Tiyu. Have a good Moyed.